So, can you tell me the story now? Because I'm fascinated of how someone speaking common sense and understanding the conspiratorial nature of the whole thing, how you got into politics here and got elected.
The essence is that each individual who is awakening people, he brings up, he raises so-called, I would say, collective consciousness. And you and I and many other people are giving their input to raise consciousness. And at particular moment, someone, in my case, me personally, have decided to do unthinkable, to use this collective consciousness as a tool to get out political message.
Right.
So I said that there is a conspiracy, that war on terrorism is fraud, that biggest threat for world peace are these imperialist wars, and that they are enslaving people with unpayable credits, and that our country as such is also slave of this financial system.
You're the first politician that's spoken to me like this.
That EU...
Let me shake your hand. The breakthrough.
That EU is... there is no democracy there. And people say... I've seen protests in Britain for staying in EU. And they say that Britain should not get out. And the guy came to that protest and he asked them a simple basic question. Are you for democracy? And they said we are. And then they asked, why don't you then accept the will of majority? And then they didn't want to speak anymore. Then he asked them, do you know who is the president of EU? They said, we don't know. So basically, people are unaware of reality. They are living in a dream. And there is a saying, if you see somebody in a dream, wake him up.
Yeah, wake him up.
Yes.
So you became obviously well known. Saying
I have seen in Croatia there were 130 political parties, and I have looked at every single one of them, which one has a program similar to what you and me speak, and I have seen none. And then I started my own political party. I gathered 100 people, as much as necessary, and I went to elections. And I speak all as you. Except the lizard stuff.
Yeah. They're not ready for that yet. Yeah, the other stuff's good enough though.
Yes, it's unbelievable. The fact that we are being ripped off and robbed by private banking cartels, it's a shocking truth. And they are not rich because they work hard. They are rich only because they privatized process of money creation. That's the pure, pure truth.
What were people's reaction to this when you started talking about it publicly?
It was first shock. What is this guy talking about? And for 4 years, they thought I was a fool and a crazy guy, and I've been labeled just like you did.
Yep.
And after 4 years, the state of collective consciousness had raised, because when I realized that credits are unpayable, and I was thinking, when I speak that to people, nobody cares. They say, like, what do I have to do with that? And then there are these foreclosures, banks evict people. And then we started to block by our own bodies evictions of people. And on 4th April there will be eviction. And you can come there, you can see how police drags us and arrests us and so on. And through that sabotaging evictions, we have gained nationwide popularity.
Okay.
And our election date was, that's interesting, on September 11. And on September 11, I was elected after 4 years of political activism into parliament. And on 14th October of 2016, the parliament was constituted. And that was also interesting date because that was my birthday.
Right.
Yes, so I couldn't get a better gift. And at September 11, I had 20,000 people following me on Facebook, and now it's 170,000 people. So I have done, let's say, I have created media frenzy, basically.
Brilliant. And these are the people we're doing it for, of course.
Yes, and I am now, household name in Croatia.
Fantastic.
And all thanks in a big part to your speeches and your your books. And to make things funnier, I remember when you spoke how all what is needed to control society is to establish norms. What is normal, what is not normal.
Exactly.
And I have used your speech in my election campaign. I have subtitled his speeches. I put it on our Facebook page. It had 500,000 views. People click. It was viral stuff, and some people discussed. Some disagreed, but most were just fascinated because no one ever said so simple truth on so simple way.
So you got elected. You became an activist. And
Yes.
You got elected. When you went into that building there, which they won't let me in because I haven't got ID.
Yeah.
What was the response when you started talking about these things in the chamber?
It was interesting when I spoke truth about NATO alliance, NATO pact. I don't know how to call it. The media, let's say, labeled me as a fool, but the world media, they were interested. What's your saying on what do you think, and what's your view? And I gave interview for Sputnik, Russian news agency, for Turkish satellite TV. I was quoted even by New York Times. Then it was this Telesur. Telesur is Latin American satellite news network, and the title was La OTAN, NATO, representa una peligro para el mundo entero, something like that, like NATO represents danger to the whole world. And I have compared America with Hitler's Germany, and they asked how can you compare the two, and I said just count the countries which Hitler invaded, and then count countries which America invaded, and then combine the death from Vietnam to Nicaragua, and you will see, you will come to close numbers.
See, this is the thing. I noticed a long time ago when I was quite young how many times the American government had to keep telling both the domestic population, this is the land of the free, you're the freest people in the world, and how often they had to tell the rest of the world that it was the freest country in the world and the home of democracy and freedom. Look, if it is, you don't have to keep telling me. But of course the narrative of that is to
repeat lie as long as people don't believe in it.
To stop people actually looking at it without that narrative in their ear all the time and going, well, actually, just as you've explained, let's look at who's been behind the wars since 1776. Yes. I mean, when you've got a situation like in the last 8 years with Obama, where he came in saying, a peace and all that stuff, and wins the Nobel Peace Prize, before he does anything, and then every single day of his 8 years, America was at war with somebody.
Yes, the biggest issue is regarding laws in America which are similar to Nazi laws. For example, in every legal system, even in Russia or in China, for you to be killed, there must be some legal proceedings. There must be there must be so-called a trial, and you must be convicted, and then you can be sentenced to death. But
right.
In America, a president can just sign executive order for your execution without a trial. He just labels you as threat to domestic security, and the American government can assassinate you anywhere in the world, even if you are American citizen. Yeah, exactly. And Obama had used this executive order. This kind of legislation is allowing arbitrary killings, which is not normal practice. Also, torture in Guantanamo. People know what horrific stories came from there, and Obama didn't close Guantanamo. He kept on with these invasions, and he got the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah. That's the paradox in the whole situation.
Well, if you follow the history of the Nobel Peace Prize, I mean, some of the people who've got it has been some of the world's biggest killers and manipulators of conflict, ironically. But I think, if you look at what happened when Russia and the Syrian army went into Aleppo, and then you look at the coverage of the US going into Mosul, the situations are basically the same. There's a lot
If
of
not
civilian casualties, but the coverage of it, one's demonized and the other one's liberating. You know, I mean, and so you can see why people get this slanted view of America, because they're getting they're getting fake news about it all the time. Yeah.
It was a question regarding sanctions in our parliament to Russia, and I have opposed it. And they said, like, sir, why do you oppose it? And then I said, look, domestic population on Crimea, there was no expulsion of people who were Ukrainians. Whoever had permanent residency on Crimea, he could have Russian citizenship. Also, there was a referendum, and Russian government, they asked Western observers, if they don't believe in legitimacy of referendum, to come to overlook. They said, no, we will not. Why? Because they knew there is Russian majority and that referendum was real, that people wanted to join Russia. And first decision by Russian government after annexation of Crimea was to double the pensions, for example. Imagine you are a pensioner, new government doubles the pensions. You can't. There was no revolt of people, you know. And in the same time, Israel is breaking all international law, all international norms. I will just count few. First, in 1948, Israel expelled 750,000 Palestinians from their own land and confiscated their property in present-day Israel. And although there is a UN Security Council resolution 194, which says Israel must allow return of refugees, up until today these people have not been allowed to return, and that's why Palestinians are the biggest refugee population in the world today, 4.5 million, more than Syrians. Nobody speaks about that.
Right.
Then you have UN resolution 242, which says Israel must withdraw from West Bank. Israel didn't withdraw from West Bank. You have another United Nations Security Council resolution 497, which says that occupation of Syrian Golan Heights is null and void, no basis in international law. Israel doesn't want to pull out. Then you have another Security Council resolution 2334, which says Israel must stop building illegal settlements on stolen land. Israel disregards all this, and Palestinians in Israel and occupied territories of West Bank can only dream about status of Ukrainians in Crimea. And I asked Spanish ambassador in Croatia, sir, if you are so eager about international law and you think sanctions on Russia should apply, why then you don't think that the sanctions on Israel should apply too? Or if they shouldn't apply on Israel, why apply on Russia? And then he said to me, look, Ivan, he said international politics, it's full of double standards. Yeah. So that was his answer. And I said, but what if there is a politician who rejects double standards? What if he thinks if you don't sanction Israel, don't sanction Russia? Or if you sanction Russia, say, okay, give them sanctions to Israel too. And then he said, America would never allow it. Exactly. So basically, there is no justice.
This is the thing. It's the way that people, you know, one of the things I talk about is that the thing that would change this world overnight, more than anything else, in my view, is if this deletion of empathy was reversed, where people could put themselves in the feelings of others. Because if you can put yourself in the feelings of children on the ground, you don't bomb them from the sky.
Yes.
And these double standards you talk about.
You don't finance terrorists. And I have said to our president when I was talking with her, yeah. Miss Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic, I said to her, why is America funding terrorism? And she has no answer to that. And I asked Finnish ambassador to Croatia. Irish ambassador to Croatia. I asked her, what is the purpose of NATO mission in Afghanistan? They achieved nothing. And she said, Taliban are not on power. And I asked, but who brought them on power? Yeah. And then, she started laughing. So America brings terrorists on power, and then they said, they are terrorists, we must conquer the country, occupy it, take its resources, grow poppy or whatever, you know. And same in Syria. They support terrorist groups, and then when they bring them on power, then they say, they are terrorists, we must intervene. So basically what America wants is for oil to keep being sold in dollars and to dominate the whole world. And when I spoke with our president, I asked her about nature of NATO pact, because she said that NATO is spreading peace, democracy and stability.
Right.
And when I heard that, I started laughing, and then she started laughing too, So it's like these people on the top, and she was a NATO secretary before she was our president. So the people on top position, as you said, high echelons of power, they know the truth. But people on the bottom of pyramid, they are duped into believing fake news and lies. And for example, in France, they now make like fake news law. For example, if you publish a fake news, like you can get into prison or get fined with a big financial punishment. And then someone asked, what about news media which said that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction? There was a big title, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. They didn't have it.
No.
Is it a fake news?
Of course it is. And
And then they say, it is a fake news, but the government is the one who said. Yes, then the government should be trialed for fake news,
Yeah.
But they don't.
No.
But if you say something and then they, let's say, prove you are wrong, then say, you must be punished.
Yeah.
So it's again double standards.